The sound of a 40-ton, heavy excavator sinking into what should have been solid granite bedrock is something that stays with a man forever. It begins with a deep shuddering groan from hydraulic lines, followed by the terrifying metallic crack of reinforced steel under immense strain. I was sitting in my Ford pickup truck on a high ridge 500 yards away, watching through brass binoculars, when Kincaid Heavy Civil's largest earth-moving machine began its slow descent into liquid mud. The tracks vanished first, spinning helplessly as blue clay swallowed the undercarriage, until the yellow operator cab settled at a grotesque 20-degree angle in what was supposed to be the indestructible foundation of Pine Valley Dam. My name is Grant Vance. I am 49 years old, a licensed senior site superintendent, and a master Class A blasting engineer with 22 years of experience building critical infrastructure across the American West. That sickening sound echoing across the canyon was the most expensive sound I had ever heard on heavy civil job sites. It was also the sweetest sound of pure justice I would ever witness. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from today. Wherever you are sitting, it is a hell of a lot safer than the footings of a $32 million flood control dam. Constructed with sidewalk concrete over unstable clay, to an ordinary observer, the sharp smell of diesel exhaust mixed with wet river silt at 6 p.m. on a Friday evening signifies the end of another honest work week. To me, after 22 years in hard hats, it smelled like infrastructure safety being shoved into a meat grinder by a spoiled 31-year-old executive who believed engineering codes were optional corporate suggestions. Let me take you back 3 days to Wednesday afternoon. Before that sound of structural reckoning echoed through the valley, I was directing the final phase of the largest project of my career. Pine Valley Dam was a $32 million flood control structure designed to impound 16,000 acre-feet of seasonal mountain runoff. Once completed, it would protect 3 downstream mountain communities, Pine Ridge, Silver Creek, and Oakdale, housing over 25,000 residents. For decades, spring snowmelts combined with torrential rainfall had threatened those towns with severe flooding. Climate scientists called it shifting weather patterns. I called it raw water trying to sweep families out of their beds if civil engineers failed to do their jobs with complete integrity. The main dam structure was 90% complete. We had one final structural pour remaining, the massive spillway tie-in section designed to lock the main concrete monolith into the canyon wall. Once that concrete cured, our crew was scheduled to execute a controlled demolition, blasting away 15,000 pounds of temporary granite cofferdam so the reservoir could fill naturally. The schedule was tight but manageable. However, the Weather Service had just issued a severe flood watch warning for our watershed, forecasting torrential rainfall in 48 hours. I was standing near the base of the spillway checking concrete mixer temperatures when I heard the crunch of $300 Italian leather loafers stepping through wet gravel behind me. Only one person was foolish enough to walk past heavy machinery and designer footwear. Chadwick Kincaid, 31 years old, possessed a brand new Master of Business Administration degree from an Ivy League university and an overwhelming sense of unearned superiority. He was the nephew of Eldon Kincaid, founder of Kincaid Heavy Civil. 6 months ago, Eldon had named Chadwick Vice President of Operations as part of a corporate succession plan to bring young blood into the business. In the 6 months since his appointment, Chadwick had made it his mission to optimize efficiency and eliminate cost redundancies. What that actually meant in the field was slashing safety protocols, skipping quality assurance testing, and shortchanging materials to inflate quarterly financial reports. Last month, he attempted to substitute uncertified recycled rebar on a school foundation until I threatened to report him directly to the State Building Commission. 2 weeks after that, he tried to cancel compaction testing on a bridge approach because the ground looked firm enough to his untrained eyes. Chadwick had a dangerous pattern of behavior. He would declare mandatory engineering codes an unnecessary financial burden and throw a temper tantrum whenever seasoned field superintendents explained why those regulations existed. Normally, his uncle Eldon would overrule him, But Eldon had spent the past 3 months in Florida undergoing medical treatment, leaving Chadwick with unchecked authority over field operations. Grant, Chadwick called out, omitting any greeting. Why are we using grade 5 high-compression hydraulic cement on this spillway pour? Project specs state we can substitute grade 2 commercial concrete on non-critical sections. I turned around slowly, wiping grease from my hands. In my business, when an executive starts talking about changing material specifications 48 hours before a major storm, it means someone is about to commit gross negligence or corporate fraud. Usually both. This is the main spillway tie-in, Chadwick, I said, keeping my voice steady. This section anchors the dam body directly to canyon bedrock. Grade 5 cement is specifically engineered with high sulfate resistance and an 8,000 pound per square inch compressive strength rating to handle extreme hydraulic pressure. Grade 2 is rated for commercial sidewalks and parking lots. Chadwick pulled out a silver tablet, swiping through screens. Grade 2 concrete costs $600 per ton delivered, he said. Grade 5 costs $1,800 per ton. We are pouring approximately 100 tons into this monolith section. That represents an immediate savings of $120,000. It is not a savings if the structure shears off under hydraulic load and wipes out 3 towns downstream, I replied. Grade 5 has twice the shear strength and 3 times the moisture resistance of commercial mix. When the spring thaw hits this impoundment at maximum capacity, this joint will take millions of foot-pounds of continuous pressure. The dam is not going to fail, Vance, Chadwick snapped. You old-school field guys overbuild everything because you do not understand corporate financial metrics. The Denver Commercial Tower project is waiting for our heavy excavation fleet, and every single day we are delayed on this dam costs Kincaid Heavy Civil $40,000 in contractual damages. There it was. The Denver Commercial Tower was a high-profile 40-story skyscraper downtown. The exact kind of flashy project that would earn Chadwick a glowing feature in corporate construction journals and get him noticed by the board of directors. He was desperate to rush Pine Valley Dam to a conclusion so he could reallocate our heavy machinery to Denver. He had promised his uncle Eldon he could manage both projects simultaneously, and now he was willing to compromise the safety of 25,000 people to avoid admitting he had overcommitted company resources. I looked past Chadwick toward the setting sun, where dark storm clouds were beginning to cap the mountain peaks. Chadwick, I have been pouring structural concrete since before you were in middle school, I said quietly. My daughter Audrey lives in Pine Ridge, less than 2 miles downstream from this spillway. My 8-year-old granddaughter Clara goes to elementary school right along that riverbank. If you think I am going to put my signature on a certified document that endangers their lives, you have lost your mind. Your personal domestic circumstances do not dictate corporate operational strategy, Chadwick said, his voice tightening with arrogance. I am exercising my executive authority to order grade 2 concrete for tomorrow morning's pour. We will complete this section, blast the cofferdam, and demobilize our equipment to Denver by Monday morning. I am not executing that order, I said. Chadwick stepped closer. Excuse me? You heard me, I said calmly. I am the certified engineering supervisor on this dam license. My professional seal and signature go on state compliance documentation. I will not sign off on substandard materials. Then perhaps Kincaid Heavy Civil needs a new site supervisor, Chadwick said, pulling out his phone. Someone who understands the economic realities of modern construction. I glanced at the wooden concrete forms, ready for the morning pour. 22 years of flawless structural building, and this unearned executive wanted me to throw it all away for a line item on his quarterly balance sheet. You want to fire me, Chadwick? I asked. Go right ahead. But if you fire me right now, you do not get my Class A explosives permit. That stopped him dead in his tracks. See, there was one vital detail Chadwick's business school education had failed to grasp. The final phase required demolishing 15,000 pounds of solid granite in the temporary cofferdam. Under state and federal regulations, industrial explosives could only be detonated under the direct physical supervision of a licensed Class A explosives engineer. I was the only person on the regional payroll who held that active Class A federal credential. What are you talking about? Chadwick demanded. The cofferdam, I explained slowly. 15,000 pounds of solid granite. It requires a controlled demolition pattern to safely direct the river flow into the spillway intake. Without my license on site, no dynamite supplier will deliver charges, and no state trooper will allow you to detonate a single blasting cap. Without that blast, water cannot enter the reservoir. And without an operational reservoir, you do not have a dam. You have a $32 million concrete barrier blocking a dry riverbed. I watched the color drain from his face as he calculated how much it would cost to locate, hire, and transport an independent Class A explosives consultant from Denver on a Friday night, how many days that would delay the project, and what his uncle Eldon would say when Kincaid Heavy Civil faced massive financial penalties on both sites. Fine, Chadwick gritted out. Pour grade 5 concrete tomorrow. But the moment that cofferdam is demolished, your employment with Kincaid Heavy Civil is officially terminated. That was when I made the decision that would alter the course of all our lives. At 49 years old, with 22 years of heavy labor behind me and a pension secured, I was ready to retire. But Chadwick had just handed me total operational leverage. Actually, I said, unbuckling my hard hat, I am not waiting until tomorrow. I am leaving right now. You cannot walk off a federal job site 48 hours before a major storm, he yelled. I am not walking off, I corrected him coldly. You just terminated my employment. You stated you needed someone who understood the economic realities of construction. I am taking your advice. I reached into my vest pocket, pulled out my laminated Class A federal blasting credential, and held it up to his face. This permit belongs personally to Grant Vance. And since I am no longer an employee of this company, my license leaves this site right now with me. I turned around and walked toward my Ford pickup truck. Behind me, I could hear Chadwick's leather shoes scrambling through gravel. Wait, he shouted. Vance, stop! We need that cofferdam blasted by Saturday afternoon. Then you had better start dialing the phone, I called back. Good luck finding a certified master blaster available on a Friday evening before a federal storm warning. As I climbed into my truck and fired up the V8 engine, I looked in my rearview mirror. Chadwick was standing under the staging lights, frantically dialing his cell phone, undoubtedly discovering what I already knew. Every certified commercial explosives contractor in 3 states was booked months in advance, and not a single licensed blaster would touch an unpermitted dam site on 12 hours' notice. I sat in my truck for a moment, watching the staging area. Part of me felt deep regret for the field crew. Travis Mercer, our 24-year-old concrete finisher, was standing near the mixer truck looking completely lost. Nora Callahan, our site dispatcher, was walking toward Chadwick with a clipboard full of forms. These were honest people who simply wanted to do their jobs safely and earn an honest living. But then I pictured what would happen if I had capitulated to Chadwick's demands. If I had allowed him to pour cheap Grade 2 sidewalk concrete into a high-pressure hydraulic joint, signed my name to a fraudulent compliance certificate, and hoped for the best spring flood conditions in the Rocky Mountains were ruthless. When heavy rainfall hit the upper basin, millions of gallons of rushing water would slam against Pine Valley Dam. Grade 5 structural cement would hold firm against the pressure. Grade 2 commercial mix would develop internal microfissures, erode under hydraulic piping action, and blow apart like wet cardboard. When that dam failed, over 16,000 acre-feet of water would surge down the valley. The 25,000 residents of Pine Ridge, Silver Creek, and Oakdale would have less than 20 minutes to evacuate before a 30-foot wall of muddy waters that swept their homes and schools off their foundations. I pictured my granddaughter Clara, who loved to search for smooth river pebbles along the water's edge behind Audrey's house. I thought about Pine Ridge Elementary School, standing in the inundation zone. I put my truck into gear, pulled out of the site gates, and began making the phone calls that would bring down Chadwick Kincaid's illegal corporate empire. My first call was to Lyle Albright at the Federal Dam Safety Office in Denver. Lyle and I went back 25 years. We had served together in the United States Army Corps of Engineers, building tactical bridges in Afghanistan. After leaving the military, Lyle earned his master's degree in structural engineering and became one of the top federal dam safety inspectors in the Western region. Grant, what is going on out there? Lyle answered, his voice professional. Nora Callahan from your site dispatch just transmitted an emergency inspection request. Lyle, I need you to dispatch a federal inspection team to Pine Valley Dam first thing tomorrow morning, I said. Chadwick Kincaid is preparing to execute an unauthorized material substitution on the spillway tie-in pour. There was a long silence on the line before Lyle responded. Grant, you know federal regulatory protocols. I cannot deploy an enforcement team without formal evidence of ongoing structural noncompliance or a certified whistleblower declaration. You will have all the evidence you need by 10 a.m. tomorrow, I said firmly. Chadwick is ordering Grade 2 commercial concrete for a Grade 5 structural application. When he pours that mix into the forms without an engineering supervisor's signature, he will be committing direct federal structural fraud. Good Lord, Grant, Lyle breathed, his tone changing to severe professional focus. Grade 2 mix on a primary spillway tie-in? That is willful criminal endangerment of a federal flood control asset. I know, I said. That is why I need your federal authority on site to catch him in the act before he caps the pour. Lyle blew out a long breath. Grant, if Kincaid Heavy Civil pours uncertified materials and I catch them in flagrante delicto, this escalates instantly to a federal criminal investigation. The entire corporation could be dismantled. Then let it be dismantled, I said coldly. If a company is willing to endanger 25,000 lives to save $100,000, it has no business building infrastructure in the United States. My second call was to my wife, Eleanor. As I drove through the front gate of our homestead, I told her everything. The confrontation with Chadwick, my decision to walk off the site, and my plan to let Chadwick hang himself with his own corporate greed. Eleanor listened silently on the porch. After 23 years of marriage to a heavy civil engineer, she understood the stakes better than anyone. Grant, she said quietly, looking into my eyes. Are you absolute certain about this? We are talking about your entire professional reputation, your career standing, your pension clearance. Eleanor, I said, taking her hand, if that dam fails, people die. If it stands there with compromised concrete in its foundation, it will fail 5 or 10 years from now when another major storm hits. And I would be the coward who signed his name to the lie that killed innocent children. I cannot live with that choice. She squeezed my hand tight. Then we let the truth come out, she said. Saturday morning broke under a heavy, bruised sky. Dark rain clouds were scraping against mountain ridges, and the scent of oncoming rain hung thick in the cold air. I was sitting on our deck drinking coffee when my phone began vibrating continuously. The first call came at 5:30 a.m. from Travis Mercer, the young concrete finisher. Grant! Travis whispered frantically into his phone. Chadwick has been awake since 4 a.m., screaming into his phone at every commercial supplier in Colorado and Utah. Nobody will dispatch a Class A blasting engineer without a 3-week safety audit and federal clearance. He should postpone the pour and call a site shutdown, I said. He is not postponing anything, Travis said. His uncle Eldon called him from Florida an hour ago. I heard Chadwick yelling about penalty clauses on the Denver project. Now Chadwick is swearing he will pour the spillway today with or without an engineering signature. And he will figure out the cofferdam blast later. That news set off alarm bells. If Chadwick was desperate enough to execute an uncertified concrete pour without a licensed supervisor on site, he was capable of committing even more reckless violations. The next call arrived at 8:15 a.m. From Nora Callahan at Site Dispatch. Grant, Chadwick has officially lost his mind, Nora reported. He just forced the batch plant to load 6 heavy mixer trucks with Grade 2 commercial concrete. I refused to sign the delivery manifest without your engineering seal, but Chadwick forged a temporary clearance and ordered the drivers out to the forms. Did Lyle Albright confirm his arrival time? I asked. Lyle is en route with 2 federal inspectors, Nora said, but they got held up by a rock slide on the pass. They will not reach the site until 10:45 a.m. at the earliest. Grant, if Chadwick dumps that concrete now, it will begin setting before Lyle can inspect the batch delivery. I hung up, grabbed my heavy coat and binoculars, and climbed into my truck. I needed to witness every single minute of his illegal operation. By 9:45 a.m., I had parked on a high rocky ridge 500 yards above the Pine Valley Dam site. From this elevated vantage point, I had an unobstructed view of the staging area, spillway forms, and cofferdam. I adjusted the focus on my brass binoculars. Below me, 6 red and white concrete mixer trucks were lined up in a tight row, their drums rotating steadily. Chadwick was standing on the elevated concrete pour platform, wearing a yellow hard hat and a bright orange vest over his designer clothes, barking orders at the reluctant field crew. I could see Travis Mercer standing near the primary mixer truck, looking visibly shaken. The rest of the crew members were standing back, with their hands shoved into their pockets, their body language broadcasting deep professional disapproval. These experienced concrete laborers did not need an engineering degree to know that pouring thin sidewalk mix into a massive hydraulic tie-in form was an absolute disaster. At precisely 10:15 a.m., Chadwick lost his patience. He climbed onto the side ladder of the lead mixer truck, grabbed the chute control, and signaled the driver to begin discharging the load. A thick stream of pale gray concrete poured out of the chute, tumbling into the wooden forms where Grade 5 hydraulic cement was legally mandated to go. Even through my binoculars from 500 yards away, the flaws in the material were glaringly obvious. Grade 5 concrete is dense, heavy, and low slump, requiring heavy vibrators to consolidate around rebar. This Grade 2 mix was watery, flowing fast like thick soup, pooling loosely in the forms. It was designed for easy spreading on a driveway, not for bearing millions of pounds of hydrostatic pressure. I picked up my job site radio, which I had kept tuned to the primary channel. "Travis, this is Grant Vance. Do you copy, Grant?" Travis's voice crackled through the speaker with immense relief. "Man, where are you? This whole operation is a disaster. This concrete is way too thin. It looks like wet soup. It is never going to achieve structural strength." "Step back from the pour platform immediately, Travis," I ordered firmly over the radio. "Document every truck number, every delivery manifest, and every timestamp on your personal phone. But do not assist with that pour. When federal regulators shut this site down, I do not want any of you field workers taking the blame for Chadwick's corporate crimes." "Understood, Grant," Travis replied. "We are stepping back right now." Down below, I watched Travis and 4 other crew members set down their tools, turn their backs on the pour platform, and walk off to the safety staging area, leaving Chadwick standing alone on the platform, screaming hysterically at them to return to work. At 10:45 a.m., precisely on schedule, the quiet of the canyon was broken by the sharp wail of sirens. A black SUV bearing federal government plates came speeding down the access road, escorted by 2 state police cruisers with emergency lights flashing brightly. The vehicles screeched to a halt right in front of the pour platform. Kicking up gravel, Lyle Albright stepped out of the front passenger seat of the federal SUV. He was wearing his heavy federal inspector coat, a white hard hat bearing the emblem of the Federal Dam Safety Office, and an expression so fierce it could burn through steel. Behind him, 2 armed state troopers and 2 federal structural engineers stepped out carrying clipboard binders and digital testing equipment. Even from my position on the high ridge, I could see Chadwick freeze on the pour platform, his arms still resting on the chute as the reality of his situation began to dawn on him. Lyle walked straight up to the base of the platform. Holding up a red federal enforcement document directly into Chadwick's face, Lyle pointed sternly at the concrete chute and pointed toward the access gate. Chadwick gestured frantically toward the sky, pointing at the gathering storm clouds. Attempting to explain why he was forced to proceed with the pour, then Lyle pulled out his official federal inspector badge and handed a formal administrative order to the state troopers. A moment later, Lyle's voice boomed out crisp and authoritative over the site public address system, echoing off the canyon walls. "Attention all site personnel! By order of the Federal Dam Safety Office and under the authority of the United States Department of Transportation, all construction operations on Pine Valley Dam are ordered to cease immediately. This job site is now under federal criminal investigation. No equipment is to be moved, no concrete is to be poured, and no records are to be altered." Through my binoculars, I saw Chadwick's shoulders collapse instantly. The arrogant executive looked like a deflated balloon as two state police officers escorted him down the platform ladder to the federal vehicle. Lyle immediately ordered the concrete truck drivers to shut down their drums and turn off their engines. He dispatched his structural engineers to take fresh core samples of the Grade 2 concrete sitting in the forms, sealing the sample canisters in evidence bags, but Lyle was not a man to stop at surface-level code violations. As a veteran structural engineer, he knew that when a corporate executive was willing to execute an illegal concrete substitution right in front of his crew, there were almost certainly deeper secrets buried beneath the surface. Lyle walked over to the office trailer, retrieved the certified geotechnical soil boring reports filed with the original dam package, and spent 20 minutes reviewing the geological mapping. According to those official documents, signed and certified by Kincaid Heavy Civil, the main dam structure was securely anchored into solid granite bedrock just 6 feet beneath the surface soil layer. Lyle stepped back outside, looked at the surrounding geological terrain, and frowned heavily. He called over the heavy equipment operator who was sitting in the cab of the site's largest machine, a massive 40-ton Caterpillar heavy excavator. Lyle ordered the operator to perform verification test excavations along the perimeter footings of the main dam foundation. The objective was routine. Dig small test pits 6 feet down to physically document that the concrete keyway was sitting directly on solid granite bedrock, as sworn in the permit filings. I watched through my binoculars as the yellow excavator rumbled across the gravel, positioned its heavy steel tracks near the toe of the spillway structure, and lowered its 4-yard steel bucket to the earth. The first scoop moved easily, removing 6 inches of loose surface gravel and dirt. The operator swung the boom around, dumped the surface debris, and lowered the bucket for the second deep bite. The bite that was supposed to strike impenetrable, solid granite bedrock at the 6-foot mark. The heavy steel teeth of the bucket slammed into the earth, but instead of producing the sharp metallic ring of steel striking solid granite, the bucket sank silently, effortlessly, straight into the ground up to its hydraulic arm joints. It was as if the operator had dropped a steel anvil into warm butter. "What in the hell?" I muttered out loud to myself on the ridge, adjusting the focus on my brass binoculars. Down on the floor of the canyon, the operator looked stunned. He engaged his twin joysticks, attempting to curl the bucket and pull it free from the excavation pit. The powerful diesel engine roared, sending black smoke belching from its exhaust stack. But instead of lifting out broken rock, the movement caused the front of the 40-ton machine to lurch forward, pulling the heavy steel tracks directly into the hole. The operator threw the tracks into reverse, attempting to back the machine away from the softening ground. The heavy steel grousers spun violently, but they could find zero mechanical traction. The movement only succeeded in churning up subsurface soil, liquefying the hidden earth beneath the tracks. Within 30 seconds, the entire 40-ton Caterpillar excavator began to sink in real time. It was not sitting on solid granite bedrock at all. It was sitting on a massive subterranean pocket of saturated blue clay and subterranean mud. A deep, agonizing groan echoed up the canyon as the steel frame settled deeper into the mire. Within 10 minutes, the $400,000 machine was buried past its tracks, past its engine compartment, settling firmly into the mud until liquid clay was lapping against the lower glass of the operator cab. The operator scrambled out of the side window, crawling across the boom arm to jump to firm ground as the excavator became a permanent, half-submerged steel monument in the mud. Through my radio speaker, I could hear chaos erupting on the job site channel. "Get the heavy winch truck over here!" Someone screamed. "Hook up the tow cables! Call the crane operator from the staging yard! Do not touch that machine!" Lyle Albright's commanding voice barked over the radio. "Everyone back away from the foundation footings immediately." Down below, Lyle was already kneeling near the edge of the pit, plunging a stainless steel soil sampling tube into the exposed earth surrounding the trapped excavator. He pulled up a cylinder of pure, wet, sticky blue clay, the exact consistency of thick chocolate pudding. I stared through my binoculars in absolute disbelief. That was the moment the whole truth crystallized in my mind. Chadwick Kincaid had committed a multi-million-dollar geotechnical fraud scheme from the beginning of the project. According to certified engineering plans, this dam was supposed to be anchored into solid granite bedrock. But what Lyle had just uncovered 6 feet down was soft, unstable clay that would shift and liquefy under the weight of a full reservoir. My phone rang in my pocket. It was Lyle. "Grant, bring your truck down here right now," Lyle said, his voice grim with professional gravity. "We have a situation down here that goes way beyond a simple concrete code violation." I drove my truck down the logging road, pulled through the site gates, and walked over to where Lyle was standing next to the half-submerged 40-ton excavator. "Grant, look at this material," Lyle said, holding up the soil core tube. "This is supposed to be solid granite bedrock. Instead, we have 15 feet of uncompacted, water-bearing clay. If this dam had been completed and filled, the entire structure would have suffered a catastrophic foundation failure within a month." "How deep does this clay layer run?" I asked. "We will not know for certain until our geological team brings in drill rigs," Lyle said, "but from initial estimation it extends at least 15 feet down before hitting true bedrock." "Grant, if this reservoir had filled and the foundation sheared, we would have seen a release worse than the Teton Dam disaster of 1976. 14 people died in that failure. Here, with 25,000 people living in Pine Ridge, Silver Creek, and Oakdale right in the flood path, we would have been looking at hundreds of casualties.